Hello, my name is Dr. Frederica Brooks Davis, and I am excited to welcome you to the 60 Prisms of Passion Personifying Delta Pearls webinar series.
Hi, I'm Dr. Tamora Lomax, and I am Spring 95, number 29. I'm a scholar of religion. I studied Black life, religion, Black women, and culture.
Hi, I'm Dr. Dwana Harvell, and I am prison number 44, Sigma Chapter, Clark Atlanta University, Spring 1995. I work for the Foundation for Sustainable Urban Communities.
My name is Dr. Frederica Brooks Davis, and I am the tale number 60 of 60 Prisms of Passion Personifying Delta Pearls, initiated in the Pearlberry Sigma Chapter at the Clark Atlanta University. Before we begin our episode, please listen to this important announcement. The Pearltalks webinar series is designed to inspire, educate, empower, and uplift the community through thoughtful dialogue and meaningful conversations. The views and opinions expressed by the host and invited guests during this series are their own and do not reflect the official policies or positions of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, its officers, members, chapters, or affiliates, nor do they reflect those of Clark Atlanta University, its Board of Trustees, administration, faculty, staff, students, alumni, or affiliates. Some topics may be sensitive in nature. You are encouraged to leave the webinar at any time if the content makes you feel uncomfortable. If you are in need of immediate emotional support, please contact the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988. Thank you for joining us and being a part of this important conversation.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Dwana Harvell, and I am so excited to welcome you to the 60 Prisms of Passion Personifying Delta Pearls webinar series in honor of our 30th anniversary. So whether you are joining us in this webinar, Facebook, or YouTube, or watching a replay, again, welcome to Pearltalks webinar series. And if you have comments or questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce my friend, my soror, Michelle R. Simmons. Michelle has focused her career on behavioral health care. She is the founder and clinical director of the Michelle Simmons Counseling Group, bringing over 25 years of clinical experience to her role as a licensed professional counselor, licensed addiction counselor, and approved clinical supervisor in the state of Colorado. Her professional background spans hospitals, community mental health centers, and family service agencies, providing her with a deep and diverse understanding of behavior health care. Michelle's expertise centers on trauma and addiction with specialized skills in crisis intervention and stress management. She is passionate about supporting individuals and families through life's most complex and challenging experiences using a compassionate and evidence-based approach. And in addition to her clinical work, Michelle is a 200-hour registered yoga teacher, integrating mindfulness and somatic practices into mental health care. She is also a contributing author to the book chapter, Considering Informal Caregivers' Needs and Palliative Care and Bereavement, Making the Case for Family-Centered Care. Michelle has a strong record of leadership and service, having served on various state boards and community organizations dedicated to advancing behavioral health and wellness. On a personal note, I have known Michelle for over 20 years now as a member of my current chapter, the Denver Alumni Chapter in Denver, Colorado. from there, our friendship has grown. We were both past presidents of the chapter. We have traveled together. We have roomed together. We have laughed together. We have prayed together. And we are both passionate about improving the health of our community. So we've presented together, and I'm excited to have her join us this evening to talk about mental health and stress. And so, welcome, Michelle, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Harvell. I'm super excited. It's always a good thing when we can really sort of get together and talk about things that will make us better, right? As iron sharpens iron, hopefully we will sharpen each other tonight. And so I'm super excited to be here.
Yes, exactly. So, tell us about your book that you co-authored. Let's start off with that.
That, believe it or not, was an out of the box. I just simply said yes and then trusted God, right? So I was asked to work with two professors from a clinical perspective on this chapter. And what I was able to do was come in and the lead author of the book had been a caregiver for her husband following a cancer diagnosis, and she cared for him through the end of his life. And we had a real conversation about how the medical system will sometimes rely on family to provide that day-to-day care, to really provide that case management, but they never take into consideration the emotional toll that it takes on the caregiver who's trying to care for themselves, care for their loved ones.
Absolutely.
And really sort of just make it, knowing that there's a grief process happening as well as the added responsibility. So I was able to just read through and really sort of talk with her about her experience. And with that, we came up with the chapter.
Wow. Thank you for that. So let's dig into our topic for this evening. Just share with us a little bit about the nervous system and the connection with stress.
Yes. So I'm going to lay a foundation that sort of just includes some of the scientific pieces. Our nervous system is comprised of our brain and our spinal cord. Our peripheral nervous system is the one that connects the body to the brain. And its job is really just to keep us safe and alive. It's how we breathe, how we blink, what makes our heart beat. It's our autonomic nervous system, or ANS, that is where we have an ability to control. And so that's where our fight or flight resides. That's where our rest and digest reside. Some would call it freeze. We have a ventral vagus nerve that is the one that we have the ability to really sort of exercise and massage and allow it to provide us connection and calm. And then our dorsal vagal is what shuts down. So it also works automatically. And we don't have the ability to control it if we're not aware of it. And so our stress activates our sympathetic nervous system. So when we're stressed, everything starts to elevate, right? And we sometimes reach our limits. And when we get to our limits is where the problem comes in. And so it's just important, if a bear is chasing us, we need our nervous system activated so that we can run and get to safety. But long term, and this is where we struggle sometimes, long term, staying heightened long term leads to burnout, dysregulation, and anxiety.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like I've experienced some of this. So what are some of the warning signs that indicate that you're in this fight, flight, freeze mode?
Yeah. So when we're activated, we may notice like a racing heart or an increased breathing. On the opposite, we don't breathe. We hold our breath and we really sort of spend time chest breathing, right? That's where yoga can be very helpful, to get full deep breaths and do some belly breathing that will allow you to reset your nervous system. But we're also restless and irritable. We feel overwhelmed and anxious. that's really kind of the first step to realizing that we're in fight or flight mode, and we really need to pause and move back towards a more emotional regulation.
So, yeah, say more about that. Like, what are some things that we can do to get back to normal or to, reset when we're in this state for too long?
So, excuse me, if you visualize sort of like a window, we have what's called a window of tolerance. And when we're too high, we're anxious, and when we're too low, we're depressed. And so our sweet spot really is going to be in the middle. So some of those things that we can do to help us stay pretty regulated is to slow down, right? To pause, to breathe, to do some grounding work. Notice your feet on the floor or your back against your chair. What are your hands doing? How do your legs feel, right? So, really sort of staying connected within our body. We can also rest. Sometimes rest is our greatest weapon,
Yeah.
and we will deny it. We'll say, you know what, I'll rest after the end of this project. But our bodies have a way of letting us know when it's had enough. If we ignore the warning signs, then it's going to just shut down on its own because our system is so overwhelmed.
Right. Yeah. Um, what are some misconceptions about this interaction, the nervous system and stress? Um, what are some beliefs that people have that they shouldn't?
That they can push through. I'll just push through, right? Right? We never let the tub overflow. We turn the water off at some point because a mess ensues if we let our sinks flood or our tubs overflow. And it's really the same thing with our nervous system, right? It is a misconception to believe that we can rest later, right? Rest is what is required. That's the pre-step. And so not just physical rest, but emotional rest and mental rest. It helps us to get into a good groove. Another misconception is that it will just pass, right? So our bodies really reflect where we are. So cortisol is our stress hormone. It gets activated in the times that our nervous systems are activated, and it's almost like an adrenaline dump. And so it allows us to lose connection with who we are, and what we need. And it's a misconception to believe that if you set boundaries or if you articulate your needs, that it's going to be problematic, right? And the opposite is quite true. And so really challenging yourself to find a space where you know when your breaks are coming, right? We're either in burnout prevention or burnout recovery, and our nervous system tells us where we are. When we're fighting every day to get up, to stay focused, to feel connected, it's already too late, right? And now we need to move into a burnout recovery plan. But our burnout prevention is where we have the most leeway to impact how we are, right? Meditating, reading, going for a walk, connecting with friends, quiet time, music, worship. There's so many things that we can do that stops us from getting too overwhelmed, but we have to be intentional to do it. And we also have to be willing to be honest with ourselves to say enough is enough, right? We have a tape that sometimes plays in the back of our head that just says, you can do it just one more time, just a little while longer.
Yes, we do. We do
Right?
have
We
that.
have that. We do have that. I know we're not.
Yes, especially as Black women, like we are constantly, helping everyone else and serving everyone else and wearing all these different hats and, being in the community, supporting our family members, our kids. So, with all of that on our plates, we do push through. And I hear you when you say about meditating and all the things, but how do you really establish a routine given, everything that you're dealing with personally, but then, that you're faced when you go outside your circle, it's a lot going on in the world, nationally, internationally. And so it's just a lot to manage, and a lot to manage if you are sensitive and tend to stress out over, things. And so what do you advise a person to do, given that, we have all of these challenges, some internal, some external, some, that we can't avoid?
I think it's important to always take a step back and look at what can I control.
Mm-hmm.
You can control your time, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can
Yes, very true.
You can control your effort, and you can control your attitude. That's really it.
Mm-hmm.
We have to unwrite the narrative that taking care of ourselves is selfish, or that we have to serve everyone first before we serve ourselves, because we're useless if we don't have the physical or mental health to be able to do that. And so it's a commitment to ourselves first so that we can be of service to others. Sometimes we take up a lot of space. So saying no gives the opportunity for someone else to say yes. Um,
Mm-hmm.
right? If I say no and you have to ask someone else to do something, it gives them an opportunity that they may be better suited or um, more refreshed and renewed to do. And so I think that it's really about starting with what is it that you value? And if you value yourself as much as you value everything else, there's going to be that time. Sometimes we complicate the construct of time and we think that if I don't have 30 minutes to meditate, I'm not going to meditate at all, where we could really be served by 5 minutes, right? And so it's starting to look at, one good strategy is to find a self-care moment every hour throughout,
Mm-hmm. I
throughout,
like that.
throughout your working.
Small wins.
Small,
Small wins.
right?
Yes.
Give us just a little bit, right? And so if at the top of every hour you can stretch, you can intentionally take a deep breath, you can listen to your song, you can drink some hot tea or get some refresh your water. If you take care of yourself throughout the day, then you're never too tired to take care of yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having a boundary, no working lunches, right? Lunch is not for work. I mean, I guess if your company's feeding you, then maybe it's a little different. But other than that, you should not be at your computer or your desk trying to eat while you work, right? Change locations. If you work from home, be intentional about walking away from your office and sitting in your kitchen or sitting on the patio. If you work in the office, move away from your desk and sit outside. Find somewhere else. But again, it's that change of scenery that keeps us regulated. It's those little movements that can help us throughout the day.
Very good. I like that. We don't practice self-care enough. And so I like that concept of, every hour being intentional about and incorporating that. You mentioned a little bit about trauma. And so how does that differ when you have had trauma or previous trauma in regards to the nervous system and managing stress?
Sure. I think that a lot of women, Black women in particular, our efforts and the way we show up is the trauma response. We have to do more and more and more to prove our worth. We have to work harder, work smarter, work longer to be better or to be seen. And sometimes that's the traumatic spot, right? And so I think that it is really important for us to not compare traumas, right? What's traumatic for you may not be traumatic for me. You never know where people are coming from. And so we want to start with a place of grace, right? We want to be able to give people the grace to explore emotions and feel emotions. Where trauma comes in at its most severest point is where we feel like we're reliving the same experience that harmed us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my low level example is if you watch scary movies, as soon as the music starts to speed up, you hear the door slam, the footsteps get louder, we instantly start to duck, right? Our scared muscles get activated. But we've never seen what happens before because it's our first time watching this movie. But we experienced that same feeling before. And sometimes our bodies respond to that feeling, and that's the trauma response. We have the opportunity, and again, until we experience it, we can't really address it. We don't know it. I'm running a girls' camp right now, and we were talking about this today, actually. And so I said, sometimes you have to be mindful of your triggers and you have to hide your buttons, right? We know what sets us off. We know what causes us harm or challenges us emotionally and physically. And she said to me, yeah, but you never know when a gun is going to shoot, right? Because you don't. That's that instant danger. And if you have been in a situation that was scary, that involved a firearm, then yes, you are going to be triggered every time you hear it. But it's what you do after that trigger that becomes important, right? How are you keeping yourself safe? How are you resetting your nervous system? And so trauma is very tricky and just looks very different for everyone. But honor your trauma, right? Don't let your trauma dictate or set boundaries to your life or what you will or won't do. But acknowledge it, and then there are many professional modalities that can be helpful in overcoming trauma.
Yeah. When you were talking about the movies, I was thinking about this weekend because I finally watched the Tyler Perry movie Straw.
Oh,
and I was so emotional watching that movie. Like I was bawling during that movie, and afterwards, I was sad, and I just was filled with so much emotion. And so as you were giving those examples, it made me think about that because I was thinking to myself, why am I feeling like this? Like it's a movie. Why am I crying so much and, just so emotional? And so, I didn't have those lived experiences, but somehow I could relate to it. I don't know if it was, just empathizing, but it's amazing how, watching a movie can bring that reaction out of you.
Yeah, it's not only the empathy, and even though it's not your exact story, but feeling that frustration or feeling like doors are being closed in your face or feeling like all I need is a chance, right? I am doing my best, and if I can get that chance, then I know that things are going to be okay. I'm not asking for more than what I deserve. I'm just asking for my fair share, my due share, what I've earned. And so that movie, in and of itself, represented an experience that is common to a lot of us. I can't say all of us, but the majority of us have at some point felt frustration. And then the rest of it, you're absolutely right, is your heart. That's your empathy and your desire to, she shouldn't have to deal with that. And we can say that for all of us. We shouldn't have to deal with those hardships and heartaches and pains that are unnecessary. Some of it allows us to grow, right? No one is going to get through life unscathed, and that certainly wasn't promised to us. But we do have the opportunity to grow, and it's just when you need a break, when you're tired. Like I think there's so many things that movie represented outside of just the narrative or the storyline that resounds, that sounds and rings true with a lot of us.
Yeah. So say a little bit more about the cultural and racial and generational stressors that we experience all the time, as we go through the various phases of our life, as we age and get older and mature, and how we can create opportunities from that, or make it more positive, or protect the health of our nervous system through those things.
I think a big part of it is acknowledging, right? We have a very difficult time saying that's hard, right? That was hard, or I don't want to, right? Sometimes we are putting caregiving roles, we're putting roles that we didn't plan for it, right? And when it's presented to us, we feel obligated to solve it.
Yes.
So I didn't create it. I didn't have this on my bingo card this month, but here I am, right? And so I think that there's an opportunity just to open up the dialogue. Shame hates exposure. Shame hates for us to connect so that we can validate one another, right? And that's the one thing that we need. It is difficult to wear multiple hats, especially. I mean, well, you said y'all just turned 30, so I know how old y'all are because I'm the same age, right? I'm the same age. But we're in a position where we're looking maybe at aging parents and maybe raising families of our own or children or grandchildren. And so we're really sort of in that sandwich when we're just hitting a prime of our life where we're ready to start living. And then there's a caregiving responsibility that is given to us. Culturally, we don't like to ask for help. So the thought of bringing in caregivers, paid caregiver, listen, everybody that has insurance, like check your benefits and see what caregiving support you can get. Because again, you can't run yourself into the ground for the sake of anyone else, right? Whomever you're caring for needs you to be 100% so that you can help them and help yourself.
Right.
So starting to look at resources and supports, but we're very private as a culture, and we don't like to say when we're struggling. We don't like to say that I'm hurting. We don't like to say that I'm tired. We don't like to say that I just don't want to because it seems selfish. It seems right like we're here to serve, and what kind of servant will I be if I have boundaries? And that's just the narrative that I think sometimes is used to control us. We get to write our own narrative, and we get to decide when we've had enough, and we don't really have to justify it. We can provide a resource, and that's really where our role is, right? To make sure that everything's okay, but I don't have to do everything. And sometimes that's hard. No one's impressed when we're overworked, overwhelmed, burned out, down and out, depressed, tired, faking it until we make it. We don't have to do that.
Yeah, I think you're right. And you made a valid point earlier about checking in with yourself, because sometimes, we're just going and going and going. We don't take the time to check in or reflect or ask ourselves, how are you doing today? Yeah. How are you feeling? What do you need?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What do I need today?
Right. So, this is very good information. And, some of these tips and tools and things that are practices and routines that you're speaking of, how can we educate and make that education more accessible to everyone, to the underserved communities, to folks who are, just surviving or, just making it every day?
I think that there is an opportunity we've compartmentalized so many things that are a result of stress, right? High blood pressure, diabetes, all of those things are exacerbated by stress. And so we see it in our communities, and there's a lot of education about the individual ailments or disorders. And there's not a lot of education about how they're interconnected. So our hearts are impacted by stress, our blood pressure, our diabetes, obesity, poor sleep, migraines, like asthma. There's so many things that are stress related, but we don't start with stress as the cause. We like to blame people and say like, well, you need to cut the sugar, you need to stop eating sugar and cut the sodium. And while all of those things can help, if your stress isn't managed, it doesn't matter. Right? So I think, and then that's where we move into those silent addictions, right? Where maybe we are overeating for comfort. Maybe we're having random sex. Maybe we're drinking too much. Maybe we're starting to look at ways, right? We externalize the relief that we need when it really starts internally. Taking a deep breath, right? If everybody that's listening, if everybody under the sound of my voice right now, just check in with your body, right? How do your shoulders feel? What's your neck doing? How's your back? What's your stomach feeling like? What are your toes doing? Right? Like sometimes we just don't pause to see how we're really doing. And if we can start there, then we can help hold each other accountable. It's okay for me to say, Luana, when have you had a break? When are you going on vacation? When are you taking some time off? Girl, you look tired, right? Like, I think sometimes we avoid just being honest with each other, and that also hurts us, right? Again, my girls' camp is at the forefront of my brain, and they were talking about matching energy, right? I just matched somebody's energy, right? Not every energy should be matched, right? If you are not well, I don't know that I want to match your energy, right? But again, we're externalizing our responses and our reactions to what other people are doing when it really sort of starts at home. And so I would encourage everybody to just take a moment and reflect, right? Whether that's 5 minutes in the morning, sometimes cutting the radio off if you have a commute to work, like just going in silence, but just really reflecting and doing an honest assessment of where am I? Is my health where I want it to be? Are the quality of my relationships fulfilling? And what is stress protecting, right? We call it our nerves. It's in our necks and our shoulders, and it's killing us. Stress will kill you. And so being able to be honest with yourself and then take some action towards that is super important.
Yeah. So why do you think we don't learn that at an early age to set boundaries and take care of ourselves? And
so I think we don't learn it at an early age because the perception that if you set boundaries, you're selfish. If you're not a team player, you're right. That's just a tool to control and manipulate, right? If I ask you to do something and you say no, and I'll say, see, I knew you wouldn't help me. Right now, I've planted this seed that's got to make you say, I would help you, but right. And so we start to defend our feelings, and we don't have to do that because then we confuse ourselves, right? And so again, I think it's been a tool. These words are used, that sticks and stones. Words do hurt, but words also control us, and it's important that we allow ourselves to be really clear on what we need and to communicate that. Because if I don't tell you, then you're not going to know.
Right.
If I say, well, if you can't find anybody else to go with you, I'll go. Your response is like, nope, nobody wants to go. So it's me and you, right? I should just say, no, I don't want to go. And so I think we have this passive communication in our community, partly because we've been told that we're aggressive when we communicate right? And so I think that they're intertwined, and we just have to take ownership for ourselves and support others when they set those boundaries, right? Your job is to set the boundary. My job is to get what I want. So I don't have to respect your boundary.
Yeah.
But you have to maintain it. And so we stress ourselves out trying to be all things to all people and nobody to ourselves.
Ooh, that is good. That is good. Just as a reminder, if you have questions, please be sure to post them in the chat. So yes, say more about that, helping each other. What does that look like? Helping someone else, and what are ways that we can support each other?
Accept a no. Like if someone says that they can't do it, accepting that and not taking it personal, right? Sometimes I think it is, checking in. Can you call and see how someone is doing? Oftentimes, we'll just assume they're fine, right? No news is good news. But sometimes no news is a danger sign, right? So we do need to just hold each other accountable. And when we're in relationship with people, in good relationships with people, we can co-regulate, right? We can help each other manage our stressors. And we can do that by spending time together. We can do that by conversation. We can do that by being intentional or going for a walk, or just even saying like, how are you doing?
Right.
Right?
And
Because sometimes we can hear
so
it.
when you respond, actually answering the question honestly.
Yes. Right? Like I didn't ask you for you to just mislead me. I was going to say lie to me, but you know. Right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I do think that there is we've got a big upside, and I'm super hopeful for this time that we're in, despite all of the fires around us, because
Right.
we continue to have these conversations and continue to try to improve who we are and how we are, and bring our communities along with us. Right. So the more we talk about stress and its dangers, the more we talk about regulating our nervous systems, right? We can spot a dysregulated child quickly, right? They're usually crying and having a tantrum in the floor,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we're just asking them to calm down and take a breath, and what is it that you want to do? For adults, it looks a little different, right? We can sometimes see a dysregulated adult, but oftentimes we shut down, and that's where the trouble comes in.
Mm. Yeah. So going back to the nervous system, um, if the nervous system could talk, what what would it want us to know? What would it say to us?
The nervous system would say, "Girl, help me," right? Like, help me, please. So, I think that again, the way our nervous system works is that when we're too high, we're anxious, right? So that anxiety, that is long term. Now, again, if a dog is running at you and you don't know this dog, yep, you're probably going to be anxious and ready to run, right? That's that flight part. Um, but when we are too low and not in our window, we're too low, we're
Mm.
depressed, right? And that's where we're frozen, can't get up, not interested in anything, right? And so if our nervous systems could talk to us, what they would really say is like, treat me with loving kindness, right?
Mm.
Put me first, um, and operate from a place of tolerance, right? Operate from a regulated place, right? When we're regulated, it really allows us to have clearer and calm thinking, right? We can make solid decisions. We're much more on our game when our nervous system is regulated. But when it's too low, we're pretty disorganized, and sometimes we forget things that are important, or things that could be harmful. I will self confess. A couple months ago, I forgot to order my blood pressure. Look, me too. I forgot to order my blood pressure medicine, and I don't even know how I forgot. It was on my mind, but so were a whole lot of other things, and I was just overwhelmed, right? And so sometimes we have to be honest that our overwhelm will hurt us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the key though that you keep bringing back to me at least is the self-awareness. It begins with taking the time to be aware of, how you're feeling, how you're doing. Like you said, how are my toes? I'm about to ask your toes, how your toes? How are my toes doing? How you doing? So just that self-awareness, and then, making an adjustment once you realize that something is out of whack is what I'm getting from this conversation.
Yeah, I think that one of our trauma responses is to work on autopilot, right?
Mhm.
We just go and we do. We don't know the name of the street. We can't remember the name of the restaurant. It's just on the corner by 7-Eleven, right? We sort of have benchmarks, but we don't take time to clue in
Mhm.
about how things really are, right? So if I asked you what you ate today and I said, how did it taste? You're probably going to say good. But you may not be able to say, like, oh, yes, and this spice was on, and it was, seasoned well to perfection.
Mhm.
Like, you're not going to be able to give me any details because we oftentimes mindlessly eat. We
Mm.
think it's good, but we don't take time. I'm always fascinated when people are like, oh, did you taste the feta salad? Yes, it had great basil in it, right?
Right.
Like, well,
Yeah.
I ain't pay that kind of attention, but we do so many things mindlessly that before we know it, our bodies can betray us in the sense of it's not working like it's supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's only not working because it's like it's supposed to, because I ignored all of the signs and symptoms. Like when my check engine light comes on, some people go to the mechanic right away.
Mm-hmm.
Others drive around like
It's true.
danger zone.
It's very true. Even with gas, yes, gas, like
Right. And then we run out and we're like, oh man,
right.
now I gotta call AAA, right? Or I gotta call somebody.
Exactly.
And tell them. And so I think if we can commit to doing the best that we can for ourselves, just like we do the best that we can for others,
Mm-hmm.
we'll be all right. Right? Scheduling our doctor's appointments, staying up on what our needs are. Right? There was a period of time where 5 hours of sleep was all I could tolerate because my brain would wake up and I'm ready to go again. Well, now it's like 6 hours, right? And so I have to honor that it's not 5 anymore.
Right.
I have to wear glasses, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can choose to just squint and not see, but why would I do that, right? And so I think sometimes we have to ask ourselves why we don't pay attention to our physical, emotional, and mental health, why we don't fight for emotional safety. We put ourselves emotionally in harm's way, watching the news for hours at a time. It's the same story every 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So can you commit to yourself that I'm going to get the first 30 minutes and then I'm out? I'm not going to watch anymore because there's nothing more that I need to know, right? If we're feeling overwhelmed, then there's no need to try to work on others' problems. There's no need to look at world news, right? When we're overwhelmed, we need to turn inward to say, what do I need?
Mm-hmm.
To relax again, to get back into my window of tolerance.
Right.
But it's a commitment, and it's hard sometimes to commit to ourselves as well as commit to others.
To slow down and reflect and check in. Yeah. Taking those initial steps, especially when you're on autopilot, and just retraining yourself to make those adjustments. So you mentioned about trauma, and it reminded me of a conversation we've had previously. And you said something to the effect of we need to have trauma-informed cities.
Yes, absolutely.
So say more about that.
So a trauma-informed care in general is really about knowing what's going to happen, what to expect, and when to expect it, right? And so it's really kind of a no surprises act. And so if we start to look at our cities, the way that instead of saying, what did you do, looking at what happened to you. And if cities, organizations, jobs, communities, if everyone can start working from a perspective of what happened to you, not why are you like this, right? Like, why are you like this? Like, what happened to you? Then we're going to be better, right? If our cities can start to look at a kid yelling in a library does not deserve to be banned from the library.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They may need to understand and be taught how you behave in a library. A city that, offers free services or resources needs to understand, like, I never for the life of me understand how people get discharged from mental health centers, right?
Mm-hmm.
They get discharged for not showing up. But it's their mental health that's preventing them from showing up. Maybe they're so depressed that they can't get out of the bed, but you now have taken away a lifeline or a resource for them. And so if cities can really start to promote it, from our unhoused communities to our activist community, like everyone needs, the cities just have to start looking at what can we do better to support people. Nobody wants to have a hard life. Nobody wants to experience the difficulties that you saw in Straw. Like, what can we do from a more trauma informed basis? If anybody, speaking of Straw, if anybody at the bank would have connected, like, I can't think of her name, but like she did.
Shepherd.
Yeah, Sherry Shepherd.
Yeah.
Everybody in the bank worked from the perspective of her. It may not have gotten to that point.
Right.
If us at the job would have worked from that perspective,
Mm-hmm.
it wouldn't have gotten to that point. And so I think sometimes instead of we have to be willing to assume positive intent instead of um, thinking that everything is nefarious and targeted at us. And so when a city closes a high school track because they don't want anyone to walk on it, right? They only want the schools, like
Yeah.
there's an opportunity for everybody to be better. And I think it starts with high level leadership. And I also think it starts with our personal selves as well.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's good. So if you're having a difficult day, what is your go-to practice? If you're having just a stressful day, a difficult day, speak of the straw.
I hope to never have straw days.
Exactly.
So I think so I can generally tell how my day is going to go within the first 5 or 6 minutes of waking up. Right?
Uh-huh.
Wake up, I pray. Sometimes I feel like I need to sleep in just a little bit longer, and so I do that, right? Because everything else on my schedule isn't going to matter if I'm not my best self.
Right.
It's going to make more mistakes. It's just going to take me longer to get it accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
But I also like to look at my day as in sections, right? I'm a football fan, so I do first, second, third, fourth quarter, right?
Yes.
Lunch is halftime. So just because I had a bad first quarter, I get to make a decision about how the second quarter is going to go, and that's when I turn it around, right? What do I need? Do I need to just leave this report for tomorrow? Do I need to just do nothing? At the end of my day, I like to work out. I do yoga. Again, I went into yoga thinking that, it's a therapeutic tool. There's a lot of connections about breath work and the healing of trauma and anxiety. So I went to yoga teacher training with my notebook, my notepad, and all my pens because I love pens.
Me too. We got the pins, the sports. Yes, I'm with you.
Right, same. And so I started writing, but then I realized that I needed to be listening more and I needed to be experiencing more. And from then it was a game changer, right? And then yoga became really for me. And then I just happened to tell everybody about it. At first, I thought it was just a therapeutic tool that I was going to be able, to bring into my practice and to help people regulate with different breathing techniques. And it was a game changer for me. So at the end of my day, if it's been long, I'm definitely doing some yoga. I'm probably going to bed early. And I love crime shows. So, me, Finn, and Olivia are going to solve some case.
Yes.
On SVU.
Absolutely. Okay. Good, good, good.
What about you? What do you do at the end of a stressful day?
I usually just kick my feet up on the couch and watch a show. Like get caught up on my shows and just try to take my mind off of whatever it was or whatever happened earlier that day. And I'll use the word decompress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The laundry can wait.
Exactly.
The dishes, right? Cleaning up all of it can wait until you feel ready to do it.
That's right. That's right. Well, I don't see any questions here. Again, as a reminder, please post any questions for Michelle in the chat. I did want to ask about books and resources. If you can recommend any articles or books or, people are watching YouTube a lot. Just resources if folks want to learn more about the nervous system and stress or want to learn more about self-care tips or, just read up more on this topic.
I think that for the most comprehensive book related to trauma, the nervous system, stress management, is The Body Keeps Score
Mm.
by Bessel van der Kolk. Dan Siegel also has a lot of good information out about the window of tolerance and nervous system regulation. You know, I absolutely adore and love Rest is Resistance by Trisha Hersey.
Mm.
It really sort of just rest is our birthright, period. No,
Yes.
no other comments. And so I think there's that, but I also think that you want to not compare. You want to find what works for you. Some
Mm-hmm.
people love to journal. Journaling is a bilateral brain stimulation, so it is very therapeutic to write, to color, to walk. Anything that requires your brain to work both hemispheres is going to be super helpful. Um, but I think that but you have to find what works for you.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't like yoga, don't do yoga. Do what works for you, and not judge it, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
sometimes I think when we externalize our hope or externalize our power and responsibility, like what
Mm-hmm.
you said, I need to do 20 minutes of yoga every day. That
Yeah.
doesn't work for you. It's okay to say that doesn't work for me, right?
Right.
I like to kick my feet up. I like to visually decompress. You know, sometimes visualization is huge. Hopping in the shower and watching all your stress go down the drain.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I go to the hairdresser and she washes my hair, wasn't that a commercial like I'm gonna wash the stress right out of my hair?
You have a lot of good
So,
suggestions and tips. You should write a book about all of those things.
ma'am, I am not a writer.
I love it. I love it. I'm gonna rewatch this webinar just to get all those good juicy tips,
That's right.
get all those nuggets.
It's important, right? Like no stone is unturned. Some people like to stand barefoot in the grass and look at the sky. If that works for you, do that.
I like to get in the shower and just wash the day away.
Yeah,
Go
it
down
is
the
a great
drain.
visual. A great visual.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, is there anything else you want to share? What is, one thing that as a result of this webinar, you hope people take away or walk away with? What is one thing you want folks to walk away with as a result of this webinar?
You know, I want everyone to walk away with the understanding that they deserve peace, right? We all deserve peace. We all deserve to feel good in our bodies. And so that takeaway I think would be that it's easy. It's up to you. Whatever works, nobody should judge it. Um, and and you deserve it. You absolutely deserve it.
That's right. That's right. I love that. Um, please be sure to share your contact information as we wrap up in case participants have questions or want to reach out and uh, make use of some of your services, your counseling services, or um, want to have questions about some of the resources that you shared. This was phenomenal. I thank you again for sharing and joining us. Every time I call Michelle, like, Michelle, can you
Right? I think we
always
arranged this at a luncheon or something. Yeah.
yes, yes. I
No,
love
I
it.
am always happy to, I feel like people love to complicate things, right? Like overcomplicate it, make it difficult. And I love every opportunity that is presented to me. I feel like it's one of my gifts. And I feel like it's just the price I pay for being here on the earth is to be able to share what I have learned. And to be, if one person takes a deep breath today when this is done, I feel sufficient, right? And so you can find me. I'm not great on social media, but you can find me on social media. My professional website is mrscounseling.com. Social media, both Instagram and Facebook, are Your Healing in Reach. I'm also on LinkedIn. I would put my number in the chat, but that might not be wise. But reach out, and I'm happy to share any information that you need.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And on behalf of the 60 Prisms of Passion personifying Delta Pearls in celebration of our 30th anniversary, we thank you. We thank you for sharing. Thank you for the work that you do in community. We know there's definitely a need. And on behalf of our subcommittee that is working on the Pearltalks webinar series, myself, Dr. Frederica Brooks, and Dr. Tamora Lomax, we thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you again for having me.